Hi, I'm Robert Horton. I'm a member of the National Society of Film Critics and the programmer historian in residence at Scarecrow Video. And in 2022, I'm once again leading Scarecrow Academy, an online semester, if you will, discussion group presented by the nonprofit Scarecrow Video in Seattle. This year, we're presenting The Art in Sci Fi, Science Fiction, and the Director. We'll be looking at 10 classics of science fiction cinema, discussing them with an emphasis on how the art of directing manifests itself on screen. You don't have to attend any of our previous sessions to join us on any week. The series is free, takes place via Zoom on Saturday afternoons at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Go to the Scarecrow Academy page if you are not there already, and there should be a link that you can click on to get enrolled. Our semester continues on April 9th with a conversation about the 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, directed by Steven Spielberg. You will watch the film before Saturday, and I will introduce the film and director right now. We have a director that's not exactly obscure here, given the unmatched success of Spielberg's career. Just for the record, Steven Spielberg was born in 1946, part of a new generation of would-be filmmakers, not just raised on movies, but also on television for the first time. And he was making home movies as a kid, still in his early 20s, when he directed some very, very interesting episodes of Night Gallery and Columbo for television, and then made a sensational made-for-TV movie in 1971 called Duel, a film in which he made the saga of a lone car driver's battle with a malevolent truck driver into a thrilling cinematic experience. Spielberg's first two theatrical films after that were The Sugarland Express and Jaws, the latter a blockbuster so enjoyable that it was easy to overlook how superbly directed it was, a phenomenon that would dog Spielberg for many years. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, from his own original idea, was therefore his third theatrical feature, and a movie that pondered the question of what would happen if aliens came to Earth not to destroy and conquer, but in something like friendship and curiosity. Of course, Spielberg had since then has gone on to a very high-grossing career, as you all know, making films as disparate as the Indiana Jones pictures and Schindler's List. And he's kept his hand in with his interest in science fiction along the way, with titles such as Minority Report, The War of the Worlds, of course E.T., and also a fascinating project that he inherited from Stanley Kubrick, AI, a haunting, also horrifying look at the future of artificial intelligence. Close Encounters had its roots in a feature-length film that Spielberg made as a teenager, produced for $500 by his parents, and shown once in a local theater. A story about alien encounters, had some elements that apparently survived into Close Encounters. Other people worked on the script of the film that we are looking at this week, but it is credited to Spielberg himself. He apparently made up the final draft, and flush with the success of Jaws, he could have a bigger budget at his disposal for the extensive special effects in this movie, which, if you were able to see it in 70mm back in the day, were truly overwhelming. This is one of those rare films where special effects serve a genuinely emotional purpose, not just spectacle for its own sake. Not that there's anything wrong with that. As he has done throughout his career, Spielberg's casting is effective. Apparently he considered people like Steve McQueen or Jack Nicholson for the lead role, but thankfully opted for the more everyman qualities of Richard Dreyfuss, with whom he'd worked on Jaws. There's no movie star dazzle about Dreyfuss, and he grounds the movie by being able to play comedy, obsessiveness, and a sense of wonder. Terry Garr and Melinda Dillon, who received a Supporting Actress Oscar nomination, are well cast, again, very human presences, rather than toting around big movie star glamour or something. And the casting coup of the movie, I think, is Spielberg's use of the great French director Francois Truffaut as the UFOologist Lacombe. This character was inspired by a real-life figure, and so Spielberg looked around for some French actors to play it, but I'm very glad he settled on Truffaut, who, as a filmmaker himself, had been one of the leading lights of the French New Wave in filmmaking. We watched one of his films, Fahrenheit 451, earlier in this sci-fi semester. And he had acted in some of his movies, and notably in The Wild Child and Day for Night. And he had a face that Spielberg very much wanted in this key part. Other impressive participants include the brilliant cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond, who won the only competitive Oscar that the film earned. It did get a special Oscar for sound effects editing, I think. The visual effects were a great roster of FX people, including Douglas Trumbull, who had worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey. And of course, the composer John Williams should be mentioned here, after creating the instantly classic score for Jaws. Williams' task this time was especially key because music would play an important role in the film's storyline and not just merely serve as background. That music, especially Williams's 5-note theme for the connection between the alien languages and our own, is a reminder that this film was all about connection, finding a common language, whatever that means, whether it's between species or between husband and wife. And indeed, the first moments of the film involve an attempt for people speaking 3 different languages, Spanish, French, and English, to try to make each other understood. Music is that which connects different worlds, and not unlike Truffaut's own work, I think Spielberg explores the idea of how art, especially the movies, provides life-altering support and sustenance. And so it is appropriate that music is located at the core of our beings and at the core of our ability to make ourselves known. When Close Encounters came out, it was noted that the film was a change from so many alien movies about malevolent visitors who just wanted to come to Earth and blow us up. And that hopeful note was part of the movie's great charm. And of course, part of why it's so beloved today. We should say this lovely theme sits with some rather weird and quite dark notes that are hit along the way in this movie, including the fact that this is a film about a man who abandons his family in the course of his quest to answer the question of what's going on with him, a point that Spielberg has said in later years that having become a father himself, he would not do again. There's also the very frantic sequence in which Dreyfuss's character obsesses over building a scale model of the vision that he sees in his imagination, which he insists means something, as his family looks on in horror, a sequence that Spielberg plays for comedic effect, almost as though to buffer against how really disturbing the idea of that scene is. We'll talk about those things and about how Spielberg, who was barely 30 when he made this film, remember, is already in command of directing issues like composition and scale and rhythm to create his world. Look at the scene where Dreyfuss is making his diorama in his home, and we can see that a news report is playing on the television, news report about Devil's Tower, Wyoming. The TV's in the foreground. Dreyfuss can only occasionally notice the TV, and we know that when he does see it, he'll get the clue that will solve at least part of this mystery that he's being tortured by, but he hasn't seen it yet. And Spielberg's composition is so precise that he makes enormous suspense out of the scene without even having to move the camera or cut. So join us on Saturday, April 9th, as we watch the skies and come together for a conversation about the wonderful 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind.